And without further ado, I want to hand over to An Taoiseach, Minister for Health, Mary Harney. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Damien, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning to open this conference, the 27th conference. And I'm delighted to see so many people present, and particularly so many young people, because I think, as Damien said, ahead of the curve, the enterprise strategy document that the group that I put together to devise an enterprise strategy for Ireland placed a very heavy emphasis on the need for greater marketing and sales capability. It is a fact in Ireland that we have become very successful at making the products or supplying the services innovated by others. And the challenge for the future, in order to remain successful in a never more competitive global marketplace, is obviously to be more innovative, to dwell more on research and development and innovation on the one hand, but secondly to develop marketing and capability strengths. And the report was very strong on that, and it went on to make the point that we weren't good at knowing the marketplace, knowing the customers and responding to their needs. And therefore there's a great opportunity, both from a career perspective in Ireland, but also from an enterprise perspective, to reflect on those recommendations, because I think they will play a very large part in our success in the future. You have lined up an excellent panel of speakers, and I was very taken just meeting Dan German, who established a company when he was still a student, known as Innocent, an interesting name, and it's now the fastest growing food and drink company in the UK. And I noticed one of the lines in the little introduction to him on the brochure says that he's going to talk about how to get noticed without spending a lot of money. And certainly, speaking from a political perspective, that's what we try to do all the time. And getting noticed is sometimes a good thing, and maybe on other occasions it's not so good. But perhaps one of the keys to success of any company is having a good idea and being able to see it through. And I suppose the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody that maybe has the good idea is somebody that can take the good idea from the laboratory or from concept and take it into a successful market product. And one of the most successful Irish enterprises, I think, in recent years has been Bailey's. Bailey's was a simple idea at one level. Initially, Bailey's was seen as the drink for granny, but the marketing guy that decided that with advice Bailey's would be a trendy cool drink took Bailey's from being perhaps a small enterprise to being one of the world's most successful drink products launched in recent times. And I'm in Ireland, I remember, and there on the shelf, when there weren't a huge number of drinks, but there I saw a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream. And it has been. So the good idea is clearly important, but having the wherewithal to convert the good idea into something that consumers will want to buy is the challenge. This morning I learned of the breakthrough with Elan, and Elan have gone through a lot of difficulties, and although Elan is a global company, it's very much, and clearly for anyone that suffers from MS, it won't need much advertising for word of mouth, for clinicians to tell patients, for patients to ask clinicians if they really feel there's a drug that's going to cure their illness or greatly alleviate their pain and suffering. And they certainly if you have a good experience and you tell others, that does have an impact on what other people may do. And if you have a bad experience and you relate that, it equally can have negative consequences. So in addition to the huge marketing and branding and sales programs and the expense that can often go with that, clearly we mustn't forget the most old-fashioned tool of all, which is word of mouth and looking after the customer. And the best in the public sector, customer service is seen as crucial, but to its sheer survival. And huge resources and research and innovation goes in making sure companies know what customers might expect. Mobile phone changes we can do even more for you. Is making from St. Road and depends on global it's 2%. It was 5% or half of 1% just 4 years ago. And the manner in which we're capturing increasing market share for services is very impressive. And it's clearly a larger share we have a larger share of world service markets than we do of world product markets. And the nature of this economy is changing very rapidly. And there's no doubt we have to move from being the manufacturer of primary products to being the innovator, to be the place where brain power determines to a large extent what happens here. And that does not mean that everybody has a scientist or an innovator. There's going to be jobs for many more people than that. But it does mean that we have to place a very things happen here, because products tend to be developed where they're researched and innovated, both where from are developed. And that I know focus and enterprise with our own sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish the conference well. I was listening this morning to Mark, and we've been trying to devise some strategies around the issue of suicide. We have in these islands, in Ireland, North, South, in Scotland, England and Wales, we have huge problems, particularly with young male suicide. And many of the experts that I've spoken to, and we recently launched a strategy in this, the people that you don't read the traditional papers, they don't listen to the progress was listened to. We've got to find new tools, trying to get messages to people, find help if they're in a depressed state. And in that context, a very emphasis was placed on looking at the role that texting, for example, can play in key messages of support and assistance to young people in particular. So clearly the tools that we may use to get messages across and to get issues understood and to get responses from people are very different. Is playing an increasing part in all our lives. And today, with the speakers that you have, you will hear the perspective of many that have done better than learning from those that have succeeded, who've done it before, that record. And whilst I'm always a fan of pioneers and innovators, and we need it's always good to learn the voice of experience, even if you're like a student in the started students of Stanford. So just because you're a student, you can't have a good idea, an entrepreneur, successfully market that idea. So it doesn't people of a particular age. There are many instances, and I think you today a very good panel speaker to learn and share ideas with. And I'm delighted it proves to me developing our marketing to make sure in more, which is becoming more globalised, where we're more interdependent on each other around this world, tools that can allow us to continue to succeed. And lastly, can I say, in the past, our trading experience was almost solely based on geography. By country, it remains the UK. But our second biggest country is the States. They are successfully trading into China and India, many parts of Asia. It's not just the country close by, or the country that just companies have to trade to, where it's different, where attitudes are very different, and where the language is different. And I suppose the challenge here is to be successful into those very diverse marketplaces, and that leads to successful enterprises and to really star and blue chip companies.
Most of the time, most of the people here spend, you're looking at your customers, trying to get into their mind, understand what makes them tick, become experts at what's happening inside your customer's mind. And what I'm going to try and talk about today, and my theme is becoming an intelligent customer. Intelligent customers, what is an intelligent customer? Intelligent customer is somebody who negotiates cheaper deals for the same or better services. Somebody who's not afraid to talk about money early on. When you've got that crisis and you're in desperate trouble, that's not the time you want to talk about fees to your PR consultancy. Intelligent customers sort that out before they actually get involved in the contract. The last thing I would say, however, is ironically, intelligent customers are attractive to intelligent suppliers. There's increasingly smart agencies out there who understand pitching processes are wasteful. The markup is at an end. You've got to charge a realistic fee for realistic services, but perhaps try and recover revenue from fees and not from other spend areas. Was marketing myopia, if you remember, focusing on ends, not means. What you guys want is brand awareness, profits, preferences, sales and possibly recognition, all of these things. These are means to an end. Remember to say what you don't want. If you don't need award-winning creative directors, say that, otherwise you may end up getting them. And at €800 an hour for creative directors to do a version of a package for a simple shot for a sales promotion, that's not what you want. So remember to say what you don't want. Commissions from a whole range of third parties, which we'll come back to later. Third-party production markups. This is a very interesting area. For years, 17.5% or so is added lazily onto almost every third-party piece of spend. We're seeing newer suppliers now agreeing that this is something that has to come to an end. It makes no sense from a procurement point of view. It actually encourages you to spend more of my money. Quite happy to pay that good fee, but why should I incentivize you to spend more money on a more expensive supplier? particular overhead you might be interested in is corporate recharges. If your agency is owned by one of the big 7 or 8 huge agencies, what's Martin Searle telling them they must send back from Ireland? No matter how successful or brilliant they are, they may be told about a certain amount of money. That's okay if you're using them internationally. If you're not, you're paying for something that adds no value for you. And to my knowledge, that doesn't make sense. It's not intelligent. The same to me in marketing. Why relate fees to production or media spend? Traditional ways. Pay a higher fee, absolutely, but pay according to the work. And again, you might find an agency is encouraged to spend more money than necessary here. No apologies, procurement person, pay higher fees. Absolutely happy to pay higher fees, but we push for transparency. Procurement type approach is, procurement people don't mind asking the difficult questions. We don't want to step on your creative toes and damage the chemistry. So check team roles. Like we said, do you need a creative director? You could well be paying for one. Does account management get cheaper over time? A smart agency quite rightly would say, the more we work with you, the more experience and brilliant brand insights you have. Absolutely, I'll pay you more for that, but it's easier to deal with, so you know where we are. First one is high risk. We're seeing some companies in London doing it. If you spend a lot of money on third party, and you know it's fairly basic stuff, print, etc., it can make sense to decouple that. Pay the agency their healthy fee, separately buy in the production. But that comes with a serious health warning that you need to know your stuff when buying production, whether it's TV or print. You can insist on a lower markup. Most people don't, so they don't get it offered. Ask, what is there to lose? I've seen a post-production studio with 8 people looking at a TV screen, somewhere around €800 an hour. When there's smart companies in town that can do that for 2 people. One smart post-production outfit can do that if you guys sign off approvals quickly, but you don't do, so it's your fault. Creative director's a great idea, is thinking of the concept, rings you up, no answer, 2 days later the answer gone. They're on the clock, they charge again. So marketing clients have a lot to answer for in terms of not being responsive and quick enough on the whole approval stage in the creative process. I actually disagree. I would argue that and the clients I've helped make more money out of procurement. Over-servicing is reduced, the thing that bleeds PR consultancies to death. Person will push you hard for a good hourly rate, but they don't expect you to work for free. And agencies will work for free. Foolishly, they will pitch for free. They give away the creative and they charge for the execution. It should be the other way around. Agencies have themselves to blame for being naive. And if they're being naive, exploit it, they're going to change as well. Both sides are going to change in the future. But a better contract is what you'll get with procurement approach. So there's a huge issue here around separating the money from the strategy issues, and that's where sort of having this separate commercial conversation to the creative pitch, I think, makes a lot of sense as an intelligent approach. There's hundreds of ways of clawing back more money in media. There's no need to go through it, but one example is 7% of ads don't run as booked. And in most cases, the media owners will not charge. Do you go and check for all of those ads? Have you been paid back? We're not suggesting that the agencies won't give it to you, but if you don't ask, you'd want to be fairly stupid to give you guys money back. So ask, audit, occasionally. So in conclusion about pitching, there's a chicken and egg problem here. If you don't require your agency to pitch, their creative energy is going elsewhere. If we do require them to pitch, we're wasting their energy and money. And there's always going to be one dumb agency who will turn up and pitch, even if it costs them thousands, and we see that happening. So there's a chicken and egg problem. I'm not sure how it's going to be solved, but the long-term future has to be, if I'm going to make a presentation with 5 people, spending 6 weeks preparing, I'm going to have to charge. But like we said, a lot of ads don't appear as booked. Time spent often differs to that budgeted. They use a more junior person. It's quicker and easier to do. Suppliers don't always raise invoices. You would be surprised the number of suppliers who never send an invoice to your agency. And that's one of the problems in the UK, and we're talking millions of pounds here. So one tip you might say there is if you have to pay an estimate, in many cases we do. An agency is not a bank, completely agree, and it's wrong to expect them to pay for the Burlington in advance for your conference if it's a PR consultancy. But rather than paying 50-50, why not pay 50% now, 40% when you've actually done the job, but we're going to keep 10% for all those suppliers who might forget to send an invoice. And it happens. And you'd be surprised how often it happens. A few pitch doctors around, advertising consultants, people say to you, looking at all the different agencies, pick out the agencies most appropriate for you. Dan mentioned PR, and I see direct marketing with somebody coming later. Maybe you don't need advertising. When it's hard and hard to break through the clutter, clearly PR has a role to play. Remember, it cuts both ways. There's too much pushing from the client side saying, show us all your costs. Fine, but transparency works both ways. If we get you clearly into the papers in a way that we couldn't have gotten your own without my help, I wanted some of that money back as well. Being intelligent will save you money. Being intelligent doesn't mean bashing agencies. I think agencies can make more profit from intelligent customers. They don't waste time. Their creative people are doing what they should be doing. Their production people are doing what they should be doing. So it's not about bashing agencies at all. But thank you for your time and attention.
I believe the marketing and communication industry is going, and also to pose some questions, because I think we'll all agree that the jury definitely not in yet in relation to where this industry is going. Half my advertising budget is wasted, and now I know which half. And by the way, I'm taking acknowledgement for it in case I ever become as famous as Lord Leverhulme. And the answer to the question which half is, very simply, it's the half that we can measure. And while that may sound like a very flippant answer, it really is the answer to the question. Today, over 50% of marketing communications expenditure in developed markets is on measurable marketing communications. It continues it's time for marketeers to become more proactive, all of us, in addressing this subject, because we work with disciplines within organisations that are very used to working by metrics. So whether it's finance, or whether it's manufacturing, or whether it's R&D, their parts of the organisation are metrics driven. And so it's time, and I think we're all seeing the changes in the industry, that marketing metrics becomes core to what we do. Why is it that metrics is such an issue for marketing people? What is it that we're all afraid of? Well, I think fundamentally what it is that the change is so huge that we're looking at. I mentioned in my outline that I believe that the industry has changed more in the last 5 years than it has in the past 50. And fundamentally what it's about is the question of, is it time for a new marketing model? Have things changed so fundamentally? Is this evolution or is this revolution? And then I found that Kevin Roberts, the CEO of Saatchi Worldwide, said, successful models we grew up with don't work. The consumer is boss, there's no more mass market, and the consumer is driving the flow of information. I believe that the future is so bright that we're all going to need shades. And the reason why we're all going to need shades is that the new world of marketing, for me, is what I call 3D. And those 3Ds are direct, database, and digital. And the reason for that is that it's not that direct marketing itself has decided to change. The whole world around us has gone direct. There's some from telephones, for example. We all use mobile phones. I find it increasingly frustrating to deal with people in business who I don't have access to a mobile phone. That iTunes in the US has just announced that they've been responsible for over 10% of music sales in the US in 2005. That service has only been running, what, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, and it's already responsible for 10% of music industry sales. So, you know, you can hazard a guess at what it's going to be next year or the year after. Why? Is the low level of penetration of direct mail in Ireland. Approximately 30 items per user here, or per customer in Ireland, versus over 100 in the UK, and I think the figure in the US is close to 400, which is probably overkill, but really the point I'm trying to make is that it's an industry that's really developing in Ireland. Technology has allowed mail formats to change to the extent that it's possible to go way beyond traditional direct mail, to use dimensional mailings, to use different types of envelopes, different types of substrates that really get people to reach a marketing message. And finally, I think it's important, wearing my hat as Deputy Chairman of the IDMA, to highlight the fact that the standard of agencies in Ireland for direct marketing is as high as you find in any other developed country. I did want to point out that, I mean, in the last 3 years, Irish direct marketing agencies have won top award in the Direct Marketing Association conference held in the United States. These are the Oscars International Direct Marketing business. So I think it's important to understand that while the market it has lots of room for development, the services are here and the expertise is here in order to drive that. The second D in the 3Ds is databases. And for anybody who has experience in data marketing, I can officially tell you that database marketing is now sexy, driver for successful marketing. Customer information and the ability to be able to find it, the ability to be able to manipulate it, and the ability to be able to use it is where more and more marketing money is being spent. Google alone generated $5.3 billion in online advertising in 2005. And Microsoft recently announced that of their company, and they're an $80 billion company, is going to be bet on the online advertising industry. That's how seriously they're taking it. So this is very much going to be one of the key drivers of the marketing communications industry over the next few years. There are 5 key drivers in online marketing for me, and I call them the fast 5 because they're growing so fast. The first I've touched on already, which is online advertising. The second is email marketing. And email web blogs is another phrase that we hear being bandied about. And you're going to find your customers, whether you're in business to business or whether you're in business to consumer, actually talking about your products and your services. Last but not least is viral marketing. Ability for people to be able to log on to the internet and talk about your product.
And we've actually experimented with a lot of brands as well. For example, we thought, okay, vodka is a commodity. It's a commodity. It's white, it comes in a bottle, people put it with horrible sticky drinks, and that's it. So we decided to come up with our own brand of vodka called Strictly Vodka. It was made in Liverpool, and blind taste it won them all. It was a molasses vodka. It was 37% proof. In our pubs, we bought 1,000 cases of it, I think. We had 1,000 cases manufactured. I thought this stuff is 20% cheaper. We'll pass this cost saving on to the customer, and maybe some of my friends in the pub business will also buy it. When we opened Cafe Bar Deli, we decided that the wine in Ireland really was a sort of a luxury commodity. It was, it had all sorts of connotations, your culture, your this, your that, the other. We said, we want to change that a little bit in our restaurants. This is a cheap restaurant, cheap wine. It's not to be tasted and, and sniffed and all the rest of it. It's just, this is not a gourmet experience. This is not for foodies or winies. This is just to wash your food down, like the French do. So we called the first our own brands of wine, Vino Collapso. The internet is great. We have websites for all our units, and we're very active in running them. We have 20,000 unique users in a month, which I think is extraordinary. But what it can do is we can market. If you like, for example, one of our brands, Eden. If you like Eden, you might like to go to the Odessa Club. So, because the ad for the Odessa Club is on, we have to match our brands to what we think the customers like. Staff seem to like our units. They actually go in themselves. So, quite often in Dublin, for example, on Wet Tuesday night, we will be letting maybe 200 people off a shift. They got free access to reroll. They go dancing in reroll. They generate an atmosphere, and the whole thing becomes, without being explicit about it, a great big sort of happy family. So, because pub sales are down by 20%, it's carnage. Pubs are closing. Pubs are changing, habits are changing so quickly, it's unbelievable. And yet the leisure spend is still there. This to be aimed at a slightly older demographic, because we see all capital bars, Zanzibar and all those bars, they're aimed at the under 25s. So we said, we think there's no place for the over 25s. We're going to offer food, we're going to offer wine, we're going to have a big wine list, we're going to have half bottles of wine. And now, in fact, we have a little unit on the counter where we have 6 bottles of wine. You can touch them, you can feel them, and you can get a glass of any type of wine you like. It's cheaper and it's better. $1 million this year. It's unbelievably successful. We caught that demographic. We caught that older person. There's no music in the place. I mean, the pub trade was astounded, and he's not putting any music in. I said, well, you can't hear if there's music on. Well, we're all getting a bit older. So, it was a building that, in fact, was the first Bewley's. The building itself was built in 1894. It was a dining room in 1894. And it was next door to the Globe, and I consider that bit of George's Street mine. I've been there the first, and I wasn't going to let anyone buy it, so I bought it for it. Let's do what Ryanair did. Let's offer, food cheaply, good food, to people in a Ryanair type way. I mean, when you get in Ryanair, you get in a Boeing. When you sit in the Cafe Bar Deli, get a seat. It's the same thing. You don't have to spend 300 quid in a seat. You can buy banquet chairs for 42 euros. Is what we did. So we opened a 6,000 square foot restaurant for 220,000, which is absolutely rock bottom. Successful that we think that it's the first thing that we've opened that bears repetition. So we've opened in Ranelagh now, and we've opened in Cork, and we've got a site now in Galway and Limerick, and we're going to try and make a brand out. It's Bewley's in Grafton Street. I think probably because we had already bought a Bewley's, the one at George Street. We were invited to partner Campbell Bewley Group into Grafton Street, and of course it's a very big project of the history of Bewley's that's so well associated with Ireland. So we took the Cafe Bar Deli concept and we put it behind the Bewley's brand. We also introduced another brand, which is Mackerel, which is a fish restaurant in the James Joyce room. Our coffee is very good and our training is very good. So it's interesting, the mesh of brands. I don't really have the answers to that, but I can only say that that has been a hell of an experience. And of course, from my own point of view, I feel extremely privileged to have been offered that opportunity. It really is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and it was one that I just as a romantic, I couldn't refuse it, you know. She has where we can offer a fresh experience, an experience that's a lot of fun. There's going to be some spa treatments, some outdoor pools, it's going to be a lot of fun. We did some market research, not because the banks made us, but our market research told us that even people who are young don't mind spending quite a lot of money as long as the experience is good. Our target market is Dublin and Dubliners who want to go down in the car. It's 40 minutes from the city. So again, you know, the old business laboratory, we haven't a clue. If it fails, we'll be doing 4 weddings a week, you know. If it succeeds, we'll be doing none. But I think it's curious that the design is very often the thing, the story, the myth, that starts the ball rolling. And that's why when I talk about something like Berlinter, I talk in such passionate terms about, you know, what it is that we're putting into this house and where we're not, there's no big head office, it's all flat, everybody knows everybody, no one wears a suit, it's just little, and we're going to keep it that way for as long as I'm still in business.
Over 100 years ago, to provide finance to farmers, and since then it's grown to become the Netherlands' largest financial services provider. It was voted the 3rd safest bank in the world by Global Finance magazine, and just yesterday reported a profit in 2005 of €2.1 billion, which is not bad going for a cooperative bank. We operate in 35 countries around the world. We have a staff of 46,000 people, and in Ireland we've been operating here since 1994. We launched rabodirect.ie in Ireland on May 3rd last year, so we are starting to grow our internet banks in the family. So although we're part of a very, very large banking organisation, we're very entrepreneurial in our spirit and how we're set up in the internet banking part. And that's kind of crucial to our success, that we're just able to make decisions very quickly and then go after them and go full on for them. Our model on the face of it is quite simple really when you think about it. We take products that we believe have been made unnecessarily complex by banks, and we strip out the complexity and we obliterate the restrictive terms and conditions that we're all so fed up with in banking. And then we deliver them online at a lower cost and at higher value. And this is the sort of stuff that other banks just don't do. We try to give customers the information and the tools that they need to make their own decisions, and that's crucial. We're putting people in control of their finances again because we feel they've lost control to a certain extent. They've given it back to their banks. So we have very much a self-service model. We don't do transactions for you unless it's a dire emergency. So you do all your transactions yourself. But we obviously have a contact centre open 6 days a week till 8 o'clock at night, which then sorts you out if you've got any problems. So although it's a self-service model, it doesn't mean you give poor service. It just means that we actually have to work that bit harder at giving much better service. And often the people that I hire in our contact centre have no banking experience whatsoever, but I hire them on the basis of their people skills and their ability to empathise with customers. And that's the most important thing, because you can teach banking to people. I mean, if I can learn some of it, well, then so can other people. It's not that complex. Bankers try and make it complex to confuse us all. rabodirect really is a marketing-led company. And I'm quite cynical sometimes, and I think marketing half the time is bullshit. But really, we are a marketing-led company, driven by core consumer insights, and that's really important to us. I remember when we were doing focus groups, building the business case for rabodirect. It was the September previous to the launch, and the absolute transparency and the relentlessness of banks as they forced unreasonable targets on their frontline staff, and that's resulted in sharp practice and given the whole banking industry a really bad name. And as an online provider, we obviously restrict our target market, okay? So it's people who are comfortable online. And obviously the ABC1 segment, if you look at the research, will suggest that this group use the internet more. They're more represented in using online. 67% of ABC1s use the internet. And online users, critically, are very self-directed and very savvy. And they want to take control back of their own affairs and are more willing to shop around. And maybe they're a bit less loyal because of that. But they're also likely to tell their friends about the deal they got somewhere else because they feel they're quite savvy. So the combination of the environment that we actually operate in and this target market that we're going for creates an area where there's a space for someone like rabodirect to operate. And this broadband availability is an absolute factor, regardless of the propaganda of some of the telecom companies who tell you that it isn't. It's the availability of broadband in Ireland is an ongoing national disgrace, and it impacts upon Ireland Inc. as a whole, as a country. We're supposed to be a tiger economy and a new economy. And study after study highlights the low rates of availability and take-up compared to other European countries. So that's very important, and has major implications for online advertising, the growth of the industry and the development of online marketing in Ireland. So as a cooperative bank with very, very strong values and deeply held values, we had to think very, very carefully about, well, actually, how could you, if at all, could you transpose the values of Rabobank into a faceless internet bank, and could it be done? And Rabobank's values are all about being nearby, involved and leading. Nearby, much greater depth of online functionality than the other banks in Ireland. And we also offer the most advanced levels of online security of any bank in Ireland, and that's without question. We try not to act like competitors in our category. In fact, we don't even see ourselves as a bank. We see ourselves as an online retailer that actually sells products that happen to be banking products. And that's very, very important in our philosophy and how we approach things. We are very vocal about our brand. We are absolutely passionate about our brand. We live and dream it every day in Rabo Direct, in effect, because no one had heard of us. So we obviously launched with TV, and TV played a very important role for us last year, and it will continue to play a big role for us this year as well. But the one thing that we did have, we want the big idea, and we want you to incorporate our DNA and our strongly held values. And one agency did that for us, and it worked very well for us. So we try so hard not to behave like our competitors in our category, because it would be horrible going to work if we did. So we use a different language and a distinctly different tone of voice, which is consistent across all of our communications, whether it's on the website, whether it's a TV or radio ad, or whether it's in a letter you get or an email you get from us. It's consistent down to the on-hold phone messages. And when creating our ads, we always ask ourselves these questions. We say to ourselves, would AIB, Bank of Ireland or Ulster Bank, would they make this kind of ad? If you saw their logo on one of our ads, would you look at it and go, nah, they never do that. They just wouldn't do it. And if they did do it, they'd look like a bank who was trying to be funny. So that's what we always keep in mind when we're creating our ads. Particularly the TV ad, and an example I can show you, was that it would depict everyday interaction of a conversation where people looked like they were being really nice to each other. If you turn the sound down, you think having a really pleasant conversation. You turn the sound up on your telly, they're actually having a very, very direct conversation. And probably the conversation you wish you'd had yourself with somebody. When you meet someone, you think, I wish I really said what I really meant to that person, but I didn't, I was really nice. So this is what the ad tries to show. And then we obviously introduce the product, the deposit account, the bit that the creators always hate to do. They want to make the beautiful ad, they don't want to have the product. Not right, Stuart? Yeah. And then in the end, we came back to the punchline at the end, and then we tie it back in with Rabo Direct, the straight talking online bank.
Hiya, I'm Lucy. I'm incredibly dull, and I'm going to talk about my children all evening.
I'm Dave, Mary's husband, the one that everyone thinks is gay.
Oh yeah, I know.
Actually, I swing both ways.
Lovely.
Interested in 3% interest on savings? That could be up to 10 times what you get from your savings account.
So this is Rory.
And this is Torture.
Rabo Direct, the straight-talking online bank.
Anyway, so we did 3 TV commercials, 30 seconds with 20-second cut downs, and this one here, the street meat, was hugely popular because it was just so innately bitchy, and women could recognise it, and they were going, oh yeah, I know, and I remember going, Jesus, I know, because my girlfriend's like that. And so people really responded to that, and it was targeted at a certain demographic. And then this one, the proposal one, which was done at Portmarnock Strand on a freezing cold day in April, was also very good at a different demographic, where it was a marriage proposal, but they were kind of both desperate for each other kind of thing. And people really responded to the ads, and we had a 29% spontaneous recall to the ads. So people were really connecting Rabo Direct to the ads and to the product. So obviously online, the great thing about online advertising is the measurability of it. It's also the thing that probably almost kills it sometimes, because you can see how well things are working and not working. So, as I said, we spent more money on online than we did on press this year, and testing and retesting is really, really important when it comes to online. I feel that you need to adopt like a forensic approach nearly to your online media, because it allows you, like no other medium can do, to track and trace the effectiveness of when you've launched a banner to the landing page, to the website, to the application form, and all the way through. And no other advertising medium can do that. So I'm very positive about that. So you can identify the areas where maybe on your website, for example, people are coming on and then dropping off and all that kind of stuff, because you tag everything so you know what people are doing. We did struggle with inconsistent online creative throughout the year, and we tried to address that. And it was difficult because TV is such a visual medium that you can understand what's going on and see things, where online you're restricted with the messages that you can actually do. I would say though, it's definitely my contention that Irish ad agencies and media agencies haven't grasped or truly understand online marketing, the opportunities in it for the client's business, the pitfalls, and so just some of the cross-selling stuff that we've done in kind of our attempts at eCRM. Email marketing obviously plays a pivotal role for us because we try and capture people's email addresses and then send them messages that they actually want to receive, and if they don't want to receive them, they don't get them obviously. Flashes, where every month we have a fund that we launch or discount the entry fee on an investment fund, and we would e-flash that out to our customers. And every time we do that kind of stuff, we just watch the weblogs, and then you might do something on a Wednesday, and then bang, Wednesday and Thursday, weblogs go well up, and you can see the pages that the people are trying to push people to surf, and they do it. Great. We had a target of 100 million euros on deposits, and I think we underestimated how stinking rich people are in the country, and how ultimately depressing it is to see how much money people have when they send in huge lodgements. We finished the year with 450 million euros, and already we're at 600 million euros, and it's only March, and I have a plane shortly afterwards. So you are seeing the commercial application now of podcasting, of video casting, of blogging, the opportunities that Rich Media gives you. I know that Simon from Delta 9 was only showing me earlier on some of the really nice stuff that Nokia is doing, and how Rich Media really gives you a much better opportunity to engage with your customers. And you're also, but this is a really nice example from Audi when they were launching their A3 premium compact car. They staged the theft of the new car, and then they said to customers, come and help us find it. And they used a mix of traditional and new media to promote this. And within one day, 200,000 people had become involved in some form or other. The 7 websites were created in the first week, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And you know, it's just an example of how you're using traditional and new media to generate word of mouth and a buzz about your brand. And that's, I guess, really, really important. The concepts, and each one is as good as the other one, so it's really hard to choose them. But we'll be doing stuff a bit different than last year because everybody wants something new, and we're going to develop our straight talking team that bit further on. We're developing more investment products, and we will hopefully come to market with a personal lending product at some stage in the year. So as you can see then, we're starting to broaden our product range from not just being in savings or being in investments, but also being into lending products. Over 100 years ago, to provide finance to farmers, and since then it's grown to become the Netherlands' largest financial services provider. It was voted third safest bank in the world by Global Finance magazine, and just yesterday reported a profit in 2005 of €2.1 billion, which is not bad going for a cooperative bank. We operate in 35 countries around the world. We have a staff of 46,000 people, and in Ireland we've been operating here since 1994. We launched rabodirect.ie in Ireland on May 3rd last year. So we are starting to grow our internet banks in the family. So although we're part of a very, very large banking organisation, we're very entrepreneurial in our spirit and how we're set up in the internet banking part. And that's kind of crucial to our success, that we're just able to make decisions very quickly and then go after them and go full on for them. Our model on the face of it is quite simple really when you think about it. We take products that we believe have been made unnecessarily complex by banks, and we strip out the complexity and we obliterate the restrictive terms and conditions that we're all so fed up with in banking, and then we deliver them online at a lower cost and at higher value. And this is the sort of stuff that other banks just don't do. We try to give customers the information and the tools that they need to make their own decisions, and that's crucial. We're putting people in control of their finances again because we feel they've lost control to a certain extent. They've given it back to their banks. So we have very much a self-service model. We don't do transactions for you unless it's a dire emergency. So you do all your transactions yourself. But we obviously have a contact centre open 6 days a week till 8 o'clock at night, which then sorts you out if you've got any problems. So although it's a self-service model, it doesn't mean you give poor service. It just means that we actually have to work that bit harder at giving much better service. And often the people that I hire in our contact centre have no banking experience whatsoever, but I hire them on the basis of their people skills and their ability to empathise with customers, and that's the most important thing, because you can teach banking to people. I mean, if I can learn something, well, then so can other people. It's not that complex. Bankers try and make it complex to confuse us all. rabodirect really is a marketing-led company, and I'm quite cynical sometimes, and I think marketing half the time is bullshit, but really we are a marketing-led company driven by core consumer insights, and that's really important to us. I remember when we were doing focus groups, building the business case for rabodirect. It was the September previous to the launch, and the absolute transparency and the relentlessness of banks as they force unreasonable targets on their frontline staff, and that's resulted in sharp practice and given the whole banking industry a really bad name. And as an online provider, we obviously restrict our target market, okay? So it's people who are comfortable online. And obviously the ABC1 segment, if you look at the research, would suggest that this group use the internet more. They're more represented in using online. 67% of ABC1s use the internet. And online users, critically, are very, very self-directed and very, very savvy. And they want to take control back of their own affairs and are more willing to shop around. And maybe they're a bit less loyal because of that. But they're also likely to tell their friends about the deal they got somewhere else because they feel they're quite savvy. So the combination of the environment that we actually operate in and this target market that we're going for creates an area where there's a space for someone like RabbitDirect to operate. And this broadband availability is an absolute factor, regardless of the propaganda of some of the telecom companies who tell you that it isn't. The availability of broadband in Ireland is an ongoing national disgrace, and it impacts upon Ireland Inc. as a whole, as a country. We're supposed to be a tiger economy and a new economy. And study after study highlights the low rates of availability and take-up compared to other European countries. So that's very, very important and has major implications for online advertising, the growth of the industry and the development of online marketing in Ireland. So as a cooperative bank with very, very strong values and deeply held values, we had to think very, very carefully about, well, actually, how could you, if at all, could you transpose the values of Rabobank into a faceless internet bank, and could it be done? And Rabobank's values are all about being nearby, involved and leading. Nearby, much greater depth of online functionality than the other banks in Ireland. And we also offer the most advanced levels of online security of any bank in Ireland, and that's without question. We try not to act like competitors in our category. In fact, we don't even see ourselves as a bank. We see ourselves as an online retailer that actually sells products that happen to be banking products. And that's very, very important in our philosophy and how we approach things. We are very vocal about our brand. We are absolutely passionate about our brand. We live and dream it every day in RabbitDirect, in effect, because no one had heard of us. So we obviously launched with TV, and TV played a very important role for us last year, and it will continue to play a big role for us this year as well. But the one thing that we did have, we want the big idea, and we want you to incorporate our DNA and our strongly held values. And one agency did that for us, and it worked very well for us. So we try so hard not to behave like our competitors in our category, because it'd be horrible going to work if we did. So we use a different language and a distinctly different tone of voice, which is consistent across all of our communications, whether it's on the website, whether it's a TV or radio ad, or whether it's in a letter you get or an email you get from us. It's consistent down to the on-hold phone messages. And when creating our ads, we always ask ourselves these questions. We say to ourselves, would AIB, Bank of Ireland or Ulster Bank, would they make this kind of ad? If you saw their logo on one of our ads, would you look at it and go, nah, they never do that. They just wouldn't do it. And if they did do it, they'd look like a bank who was trying to be funny. So that's what we always keep in mind when we're creating our ads. Particularly the TV ad, and an example I can show you, was that it would depict everyday interaction of a conversation where people looked like they were being really nice to each other. If you turn the sound down, you think they're having a really pleasant conversation. You turn the sound up on your telly, they're actually having a very, very direct conversation. And probably the conversation you wish you'd had yourself with somebody. When you meet someone, you think, I wish I really said what I really meant to that person, but I didn't, I was feeling nice. So this is what the ad tries to show. And then we obviously introduce the product and the deposit account, the bit that the creators always hate to do. They want to make the beautiful ad, they don't want to have the product. Not right, Stuart? Yeah. And then in the end, we came back to the punchline at the end, and then we tie it back in with RabbitDirect, the straight-talking online bank.
Hiya, I'm Lucy. I'm incredibly dull, and I'm going to talk about my children all evening.
I'm Dave, Mary's husband, the one that everyone thinks is gay.
Oh yeah, I know.
Actually, I swing both ways.
Lovely.
Interested in 3% interest on savings? That could be up to 10 times what you get from your savings account.
So this is Rory.
And this is torture.
RabbitDirect, the straight-talking online bank.
Anyway, so we did 3 TV commercials, 30 seconds with 20-second cut downs, and this one here, the street meat, was hugely popular because it was just so innately bitchy, and women could recognise it, and they were going, oh yeah, I know, and I remember going, Jesus, I know, because my girlfriend's like that. And so people really responded to that, and it was targeted at a certain demographic. And then this one, the proposal one, which was done at Portmarnock Strand on a freezing cold day in April, was also very good at a different demographic, where it was a marriage proposal, but they were kind of both desperate for each other kind of thing. And people really responded to the ads, and we had a 29% spontaneous recall to the ads. So people were really connecting Rabo Direct to the ads and to the product. So obviously online, the great thing about online advertising is the measurability of it. It's also the thing that probably almost kills it sometimes, because you can see how well things are working and not working. So, as I said, we spent more money on online than we did on press this year. And testing and retesting is really, really important when it comes to online. I feel that you need to adopt like a forensic approach nearly to your online media, because it allows you, like no other medium can do, to track and trace the effectiveness of when you've launched a banner to the landing page, to the website, to the application form, and all the way through. And no other advertising medium can do that. So I'm very positive obviously about that. So you can identify the areas where maybe on your website, for example, people are coming on and then dropping off and all that kind of stuff, because you tag everything so you know what people are doing. We did struggle with inconsistent online creative throughout the year, and we tried to address that. And it was difficult because TV is such a visual medium that you can understand what's going on and see things, where online you're restricted with the messages that you can actually do. I would say though, it's definitely my contention that Irish ad agencies and media agencies haven't grasped or truly understand online marketing, the opportunities in it for the client's business, the pitfalls, and so just some of the cross-selling stuff that we've done in kind of our attempts at eCRM. Email marketing obviously plays a pivotal role for us, because we try and capture people's email addresses and then send them messages that they actually want to receive, and if they don't want to receive them, they don't get them obviously. Flashes, where every month we have a fund that we launch or discount the entry fee on an investment fund, and we would e-flash that out to our customers. And every time we do that kind of stuff, we just watch the weblogs, and then you might do something on a Wednesday, and then bang, Wednesday and Thursday, weblogs go well up, and you can see the pages that the people that you're trying to push people to surf, and they do it. Great. We had a target of 100 million euros on deposits, and I think we underestimated how stinking rich people are in this country, and how ultimately depressing it is to see how much money people have when they send in huge lodgements. We finished the year with 450 million euros, and already we're at 600 million euros, and it's only March, and I have a plane shortly afterwards. So you are seeing the commercial application now of podcasting, of video casting, of blogging, the opportunities that Rich Media gives you. I know that Simon from Delta Line was only showing me earlier on some of the really nice stuff that Nokia is doing, and how Rich Media really gives you a much better opportunity to engage with your customers. And you're also, but this is a really nice example from Audi when they were launching their A3 premium compact car. They staged the theft of the new car, and then they said to customers, "Come and help us find it." And they used a mix of traditional and new media to promote this. And within one day, 200,000 people had become involved in some form or other. The 7 websites were created in the first week, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's just an example of how you're using traditional and new media to generate word of mouth and a buzz about your brand. And that's, I guess, really, really important. The concepts, and each one is as good as the other almost. It's really hard to choose them. But we'll be doing stuff a bit different than last year, because everybody wants something new, and we're going to develop our straight talking team that bit further on. We're developing more investment products, and we will hopefully come to market with a personal lending product at some stage in the year. So as you can see, then we're starting to broaden our product range from not just being in savings or being in investments, but also being into lending products.
Now passionate, absolutely passionate, about the core, key, fundamental role that marketing should play in all of our businesses. Our role as marketeers, ladies and gentlemen, is about top-line growth. Yes, we need to be concerned about productivity. Yes, we need to work with the operations people on always driving cost out of the supply chain. But we have got to be about demand-led growth. And if we don't, we'll have businesses that struggle. CNC, a doubly quoted organisation, very respectable multiple, and a very cautious dividend yield. Now, what's the so what of that? I'll tell you, it's this. The better you grow, the better sustainable growth you have as a business, the less you need to be offering in terms of stable returns to investors. Valued. Strong top-line growth equals higher value, and everyone's happier. What's our role in that? On the core category benefits, the things that consumers really want and will pay money for, is much more important than trying to find spurious differences. And let me try. This is a measure of consumer satisfaction, or in fact dissatisfaction, by the American effectively the American Society for Consumer Satisfaction Index, in fact. And it goes from 1995 to 2003, and the interesting thing, despite the scales quite flattering, consumer satisfaction in America has barely changed a jot. It's a kind of 75% level. It says 25% of consumers are routinely buying products or routinely buying services which are not satisfying them. And if you think over that time frame, the massive innovation you've seen in internet in just about every product area, isn't that quite surprising? Why is it? And trust me, they are, because these data don't lie. These data in Europe would actually be worse. Americans tend to be slightly more optimistic and forgiving than we in Europe. Why is that happening, and what does it all mean? Well, I think, and my thesis is, and it's another sacred cow we have to slaughter, is that actually, rather than infinite variety being a good thing for consumers, they are feeling overwhelmed by it. So you take the proverbial Henry Ford quote back in the 1950s and before that, customers can have any colour of car they want as long as it's black. Now in the world of today, there's overproduction in the car industry, in computers, steel, etc. And the result of that is that people are being barraged with a panoply of different offers. Now we like some variety, and black clearly wasn't just the answer, but it's not clear that consumers are getting more satisfaction from it. Taking retail closer to home, a little shop in Wales, that would be, back in the 1950s, may have had at tops 500 items. A Dunnes store today will have 30,000. People are being hit with a whole barrage of choice and variety, which on the one hand is good, but if not done right, it's what consumers see as a satisfying consumer experience. And that's, as I say, quite a telling thing too. And the problem is, and here's a big problem, so another sacred cow we have to sort of slaughter as marketeers, is we teach ourselves, and we all think that whatever advert we put out, whatever proposition we put out, consumers are just desperate to hear from us. They really do want to know about the next flavour of crisps or the next flavour of cola or whatever else. The truth of the matter is that the real bottleneck in life at the moment, the real bottleneck that marketeers have to face isn't their production system's bottleneck, it isn't the distribution channel, it's the mind of the consumer. The consumer bandwidth, human bandwidth is finite, that's the problem. And we can only take in so many messages. And the real so what about this is another really tough message for us marketeers. It forces us to have to be a little bit humble. And we're not good at being humble, as many of our peers will tell us in marketing. A bit humble about, well, what actually will people take in and what actually matters that much? How do I go about doing this? And if you take a bit of, just once again, to give it a bit of numerical quantification, this is some work BBDO did recently in Europe. They reckon there's about 2,904, so spurious accuracy for you, but about 3,000 messages that consumers will see daily. You think, hang on, that's quite a lot. You think about it, you're waking up, you're watching breakfast TV, you're driving to work, you may fill the car up with petrol, and there'll be an advert on the petrol nozzle. As you walk from the car into the work, there may be posters, etc., etc., etc. About 2,900 messages. To survive, we have to edit that stuff out. We only survive if we can edit all that noise out. And they reckon probably about 50 sort of make it through our defences and we pay attention to it. What we then actually engage on and maybe ponder for a nanosecond or two is probably half that again, it's about 25. And then what maybe we act upon, which really, ladies and gentlemen, is the purpose of what we do in the marketing profession, to get people to buy more stuff of what we sell, acting upon is perhaps about 3. It's tiny. And that's not just that consumers are responding to this absolute barrage of different messages. I think the Walker story is a relevant success benchmark. Back in 1990, of the crisp market, not the total salty market that was talked about earlier, the 40%, Walker's had a 30% share of the crisp market, equal with private label and other brands about 40%. Today, Walker's has a 70% share of the potato crisp market. And it's approaching £1 billion market. So that in anyone's book has been a rapid growth. And the other thing, it did absolute need in our business to have a blind product quality win over competitors has been the case for about 30 or 40 years, and we've continued to measure it, and it's a big problem if and when we don't get it. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the advertising in the world. A great advertising campaign featuring a lousy product means you get out of business quicker. For most of us, the stuff of our success is the repeat purchase, the customer loyalty that we achieve. The new parameter that's coming in is a great taste with no calories. That is a fundamental seismic shift in the cola category, and Pepsi and Coke are just about waking up to it. So, 5 lessons. Focus on core category benefits. You know, what really people want and value, not necessarily your first point of call being a unique selling proposition. Continuous improvement is far better than delayed perfection. Marketeers reclaim our authority. We are all about growth. We can drive growth. That's where the money is. Let's claim our authority by thinking about the simple, common sense things that most of us, when we get a chance to think about it, know drives our business, as opposed to some of the orthodoxies that we've been taught, which frankly should be consigned to the rubbish bin. My pitch. Thanks very much for listening. I'll take some questions. Thanks.
I want to tell you a story about how we at Diageo have transformed sponsorship within our business, and ultimately with a view that this will inspire you with us to collectively look at sponsorships and the potential that sponsorship can have in the Irish marketing over the next, let's say, decade. I believe that Irish marketeers can use sponsorship even better, and we need to put our heads together to work on this and to unlock what I believe is huge potential for this discipline /2. Diageo Ireland is potentially the biggest and largest investor in sponsorship in Ireland today. Some of the banks might challenge us on that, but I believe we are. A number of our brands have been upfront in this escalating charge into this use of this evolving tool. Diageo sponsorships have increased investment over the last decade fourfold, and our investment is very much strategically focused on a number of major platforms. And as you can see from the chart here, Guinness, involved in hurling, in rugby, in festivals. And in the festival area, we are involved in hundreds of festivals, but the main ones, Cork Jazz, Oyster Festivals, Galway Arts, and as I say, 100 of smaller festivals all around the country, taking us through from May until September. We're also involved in horse racing, and we're probably the biggest sponsor of horse racing in Ireland. The Galway races, Punchestown, Listowel, just to mention a few. Budweiser, we're involved in soccer with Budweiser, the World Cup, Premiership. In the golf area, Budweiser as well, European Open, Irish Open, and of course the Ryder Cup. In being part of a well-orchestrated strategic swing in our business. From a heavily trade-focused ad hoc within the mid-90s to a very consumer-centred strategic investment today. We spent a lot of time in the 90s and the early part of this decade learning about what sponsorship really can do for our business. Diageo Sponsorship 2006 is, as I say, driven by brand strategy, which is integrated with all the elements of the marketing mix right through the line. Be no different. But simply put, there's 4 stages in sponsorship activity management process. It's to define, develop, deliver, and evaluate. And in define, it's very simple. It's activity brief and getting that brief correct. Develop is the ideas and the plans behind it. Deliver, execute, and activate. And evaluation is simply measurement. 1 in 3 adults, aged 25 plus, named the Diageo sponsorship as the sponsorship that appealed most to them in 2005. This is from recent research by On-Site Sponsorship. John Trainer's here, and he has supplied me, thankfully, with a lot of information. Thank you, John. This may stir your emotion. I'm going to show you some hurling, some music in that. So I hope this will be, you will enjoy the hurling or the...
The Galway Arts Festival, Ireland's art festival. Supported by Guinness and Fáilte Ireland, July 11th to the 24th.
Sponsorship has a life of 7 years. Sponsorship can't be measured. That's something we hear a lot. And sponsorship is a cost. Full stop, it's a cost to the business. Before I go into the challenges, there's a couple of mindsets that I believe are commonly held mindsets. Advertising is sexy, advertising is safe. On the other hand, I believe that sponsorship is bloody hard work and sponsorship is uncertain. And that's mindsets that I believe are prevalent. Advertising expenditure globally, sponsorship is equivalent to 7.5% of that figure in 2005. The growth patterns show advertising at a plus 13%, but sponsorship is moving, growing in the right direction, plus 25%. But the main figure there is that sponsorship is 7.5% of the total advertising spent globally. Movement. Europe has an increase of 13% for sponsorship in 2006, but Ireland is the key. Ireland is plus 15 to 20% in 2006. That's the projection, and it's growing to 88 million. Those rules is that you must spend X amount against your rights buy. While we fully live by the need to back rights buy with real activation investment, an industry formula doesn't work for us. There is no set formula for spend versus rights. What is efficient for your brand is a much more important perspective to look at. But looking at ratios, you can see there in the auto business it's 1 to 2, in retail it's 1 to 2.5, telecoms 1 to 3, credit cards 1 to 3.5, and in the soft drinks, where all the money is, Damien, it's 1 to 6, and they are only guesstimates, I would suggest. An example of that would be in 2005, our hurling sponsorship, which is 11 years old, is still growing on all key measurements. Awareness is up, affinity scores are growing. And of our top 3 performing trade sponsorships, the combined life of those 3 is over 100 years. Jazz, we're involved for 25 years. Galway Races, 40 years. And believe it or not, the Galway Oyster Festival, we go back 53 years. However, today, measurements take a much more outcomes rather than outputs perspective. And at Diageo, consumer tracking has been developed around our sponsorship portfolio that parallels everything or anything that we do in advertising. And another example of that would be the Guinness All-Ireland sponsorship again. We renewed it in 2004, and the reason we did, we built the evaluation grounded in the efficiencies derived from this consumer measurement. So we looked at everything and we came up with the solution very, very measured that it was the right thing for us to continue. The final and probably the most important barrier or hurdle is that sponsorship is a cost. We are on a mission at Diageo to continuously look for new ways to uncover returns that the business generate and attribute to the involvement in the sponsorship activity. What we call here our net cost calculator tool captures all the costs of the activity: fees, implementation costs, activation costs, and evaluation. What I ask you to do is look at that as a balance sheet. On the left-hand side you have the costs, on the right-hand side you have the returns. And this then gives you the net cost of the total sponsorship out of a shortened list of many costs that we have built into this net cost calculator. Guinness Storehouse gets about 1 million visitors a year, and promoting the GAA's museum in the Storehouse is obviously a huge commercial benefit to the GAA, our sponsorship partner. Therefore, this should reflect in the cost side of our net cost calculator. We have a number of challenges that we would like to see our property partners get involved in. We'd like to see them invest in their own marketing, and the GAA are a great example. They have now started to spending around advertising around the championship. We'd like our property owners to develop in-house expertise around activation. If you think about it, it's their properties. They know how to do this better than anybody. And of course, we would like them to share research costs. And not alone share the costs, they have a huge amount of information. We'd like them to share that with us. And the other thing, we want to think big. Ireland is and should be the centre of excellence for sponsorship.
So the key thing that's going on out there, and the key thing that's driving all of the change, and the reason why we need models at all, is the fact that customers and consumers are not behaving like they should, like they used to, and technology is the big thing. We've heard lots about that today. But technology is the really big thing that is facilitating them, but it's also going to facilitate us if we embrace it. Is that they trust each other more than they trust us as marketeers. That's a very big shift.
What the net has done is it's made everything transparent. So people no longer take the word big companies. They can make up their own minds, they know what's going on. And also, you can almost do anything yourself on the net now.
So you can do anything you like yourself on the net. And as consumers, if we think of this today, even in terms of our own consumer behaviour ourselves, I think that hits home very hard. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with this site, TripAdvisor. And the really important thing about TripAdvisor, I think, is just look at their tagline. Get the truth and then go. And that's a huge statement. That says that anyone saying at you is not telling you the truth. So quite a huge positioning or repositioning of traditional companies. Quoted example, Arctic Monkeys, whereby they released their album in advance. They released it on the net free in advance of releasing it in the shops. Completely transformed the model of the music industry, which is orchestrated, controlled, managed, and highly publicised. These guys said, there you go. And the phenomenal result is that they actually sold more on the first day of release and in the subsequent 24 hours and in the subsequent week than any other CD that had been traditionally marketed. So this freedom, this liberty, this over-to-you momentum is radically changing every single aspect of every single business and every single piece of marketing. Evokes the spirit of consumers want, and they want personalised services, and if you don't give it to them, they're going to go get it from someone else, or indeed from each other. MySpace.com, a very, very, very vibrant destination, I suppose, for all our consumers. Essentially what it is a place for you to put your space on the net, and it's about your profile, it's about your life, it's about your friends, it's about the number of hits that you're getting, which is a measure of your popularity, and it's a very, very vibrant site. And again, I like to come back always to what's the bottom line, and does it actually affect value? And in this case, I think it does, and two of the statistics that I think are worth sharing is that 10% of the total internet advertising sales in the States, this site, 10%. And in terms of value and market capitalization values, this site was sold for $580 million 2 years after it was set up. So a phenomenally powerful, people are recognizing that if you can be where the consumers are, then hey. Importantly, this isn't just for the youth. There's a lot of people in Ireland registered on MySpace. There's a lot of people over the age of 30 registered, and they're finding a community and finding a reason to be. So as marketeers, I think it's behoving on us to get with this consumer-to-consumer piece. Speed on this, but there are 80,000 blogs every day, one every second, created and launched. So as marketeers, we've really got to get to grips with it, and it is extremely difficult because consumers own blogs, we don't own blogs, and we've got to be extremely careful how we engage with this because consumers will smell a PR release as a blog a million miles off. But the viral blog is the one that's really important to know about. It's spreading ideas, it is changing the face of journalism, it's changing the face of absolutely every single marketing department and marketplace. And one, I think what we'll be seeing very soon is blogging managers on CVs, or certainly requirements for blogging coming through. So this is not a template, this is actually something that's going to transform our dialogue with consumers. And this isn't about Ford as a particular website, this is about Squidoo. Squidoo was launched in October last year. It operates in the blogosphere, and it today has the same number of hits as Ford, which has been around for 100 years. And it spends nothing offline. So somebody's connecting with it, somebody's getting a benefit out of it, and it's gone viral. So it's just to say that we can't all become Squidoos, but we really need to understand how can we get our message into this blogosphere and get people talking about it.
Brands on about Apple, but the great thing I thought they did was when they brought out the shuffle and there was a fault on it, and they refused to recall it until somebody started up a blog site that had so many responses. And this guy loved Apple, but he was like, this is wrong, you need to recall it, you need to fix it. And it got to the point where they did, and they listened to him because he had so many people involved in it. And then he closed the site down, he said, right, I've made my point of view. They've changed, they've corrected, they've listened, I still love Apple, thanks very much.
So the key on that one was that consumer loved Apple, but needed to get listened to. Guinness has actually launched a blog February 15th, and already people are blogging about the blog. So, and actually this is a positive one about a corporation doing it. And I don't know who Rachel is. She could be 30 years of age, 25, I don't know. But Rachel has views about Guinness's blog, and what she's basically saying is it's not bad for a corporate job. She's saying the good news is they did it themselves. They didn't hide behind an agency. That's not to say that agencies can't do blogging for us, but the consumer is going to know the difference if it's not done perfectly. But Guinness had the courage, I suppose, to go and do it directly. And you go, oh my God, the Undernet, what's that? It's not a whole other topic. But there is an Undernet. You access it by your mobile phones. Your consumers are there. A bit of a spooky place. But as a marketeer, we need to know about the Undernet. We need to make sure our brands aren't there. And we need to make sure that our brands are being blogged in a very positive way. The open door model is about who champions the consumer, and it used to be brand companies and it used to be retailers, but today it's actually the media, online and offline, and it's also consumers themselves. But basically what Frugal will do, and you'll recognise its source from Google, it will allow you to get the online price of any item at all while you're shopping. And the texting service is absolutely fantastic. You actually can text in, you're on Grafton Street or wherever you are and you want to shop for something, they'll text you the online price. So again, massive shift for retail, and this is what our consumers are doing today in terms of consumers and open communication. So they want access to real people, they want access to real companies, they want you not hiding behind PR agencies or anybody or hiding behind your fear. They want to, and I think again, some of the companies this morning, you get a sense of them being really open, and that's probably why they're so successful. That spirit of generosity. EasyJet brought the TV cameras in. My God, what companies would have the courage to do that, but they did it, warts and all. There was an openness to it. But there is an openness about it. There is a sense of, yeah, I kind of know the guy who owns that, and I can relate to that because there's a spirit of openness to it. I think this ad here really epitomises a spirit of openness and transparency.
Please, take a look at this. Specsavers are explaining their prices openly. They are. They've got this three-step thing. Look. First, pick a frame, add lenses, then add extras. Note how Pentax lenses are included. You can work out the price of the glasses for yourself. Correct. We're not here to applaud them, Jones. Where did you get your glasses, by the way? They really suit you. Must have gone to Specsavers.
So when I was using this ad, I was thinking it could be in the open model, it could be in the competitive model, it could be in the simplistic model, but what a powerful place that you've actually got a brand positioning that is speaking to so many things that consumers are actually looking for. So in the open model, I think what we need to do is two things. We need to get our houses in order, and that's everything from food ingredients to environmental to employment policies to the whole thing that you need to have consumers very positive about you, and then open the door and welcome them in and have nothing to hide. For a moment. So this one, is experiential marketing. And what experiential marketing is really about is just saying, you know my product or service, I want you to help you touch it, hear it, see it, feel it, whatever is appropriate. But go beyond telling me about it. Go beyond talking at me and bring me into the world. The Cool Zone one was in Bates and Coke, huge temperatures as you can imagine in middle America, and in the summer you literally walk through this, so you get that physical refreshment experience. Simple, bang on strategy, but the consumers will then go and talk about that. And really taking care on the experience that your customers have as they do normally day-to-day business with you, not the once in a year event, but actually editing out, observing them, and making things simple for them because they are overloaded, absolutely overloaded, and they just won't listen to lots and lots of stuff. Actually, we have a condition called human overload, and we actually can only manage 3% of the technology of anything. I use 2 buttons on my remote, I use 3 things on my phone, I don't even go near the digital anything. So there is a reality, and less is more. And that's not just technically, that's in information, it's in processes, it's in absolutely everything.